Vincenzo Nibali pulls on the pink jersey once again. It's now coming to that time when he's going to have to start working hard to defend it in this year's 93rd edition of the Giro d'Italia. These are the overall standings. Nibali 13 seconds ahead of teammate Ivan Basso, Valerio Agnoli at 20 seconds, and then Alexander Vinokurov. Maybe it could be a day for him today. We start off in Carrara, the marble center of Italy, along the coast, and then running on the outskirts of Pisa, inland into Tuscany. The route was originally going over Volterra there, one of the most beautiful places in Tuscany, but no longer does that. They've taken it out today, so there's only one mountains classification. It's there, you can see it. And we finished today at Montalcino. That is what we have in store. Nasty weather at Montalcino. 220 kilometers now, not 222 as originally thought it would be. They took out the rise up over Volterra, the World Heritage Site, absolutely beautiful village, but they took it out and run around the outside of it. They've taken that GPM out as well. The reason being a landslide on the way towards the road to Volterra, so they had to take it out. It's a shame, really, because it would have made a spectacular bit of television with the Giro d'Italia peloton going over the top. But that was behind us anyway. Now, the shots that we're going to get today are going to be difficult because the weather is particularly poor, and a very, very difficult day today because of these conditions. Well, this is what it was like this morning. It was a little bit overcast. It had been raining and not so wonderful. Trophy for the Giro d'Italia. Filippo Pozzato, the Italian champion, signing in. Great crowds every day turning up to welcome the Giro d'Italia here. And some people remembering Franco Ballerini today. These are live images then. It's a day for the hard men today, 220 kilometers, and there are sections of the famous Strade Bianche in Tuscany, made famous by the Montepaschi race, known as the Eroica, and also the Eroica, of course, is a wonderful, wonderful sportive ride, historical sportive ride where you have to have a bike from past eras to ride it on the Strade Bianche, which are hard-packed white gravel roads, and we have two sections of those today. Both of them are going to be nasty in this weather. 7 minutes and 50 seconds from two men ahead, who we'll talk about in just a second, and the pink jersey on the shoulders again of Vincenzo Nibali. The two men up the road are Nicky Sorensen of Saxo Bank. He's lying 128th overall. He's at 20 minutes and 53 seconds. And Rick Flens from Rabobank has already been one break back in the Netherlands on stage 2. He's 150th overall at 23 minutes and 53 seconds. Neither of them then any threat whatsoever. They did get a gap of about 9 minutes. It's now beginning to come down. There's a lot of glory to go for today on the Strade Bianche, and a lot of difficult riding to be done as well today. It's Katusha who are pushing the pace on at the front here. They have one Lampre man with them, but 4 Katusha riders up towards the front. The pictures are going to be broken up, I'm afraid, today. But let's just have a look very carefully at the parcours. Pretty flat for the first 105 kilometers or so. And then they were meant to go over the Volterra for a mountains classification, a second category climb, but that's been taken out because of a landslide. They rejoin it at Roncola. They still have to climb, but they don't go over the top of that village. And then it's up and down after that. The only other mountains classification comes after 180 kilometers of the Passo del Rospatio. Second category climb again, and then they go through Merlo. When they get to Merlo, at 184.5 kilometers. It all changes. We get those white roads, the Strade Bianche start coming in, and so much made of it in the press today. We'll have a look at that in just a second. But difficult terrain, and rising all the way to the finish to Poggio Civatella today. And there is a mountains classification at the end of that as well, but a third cat climb, I think. Well, Katusha on the front today, making sure that they can control this. And a completely different type of day once again here in the Giro d'Italia. Pippo Pozzato has his eyes on this one. Remember, one of the third cat climbs at Volterra out today. The second at Passo dello Raspatio is still in, and the second cat at Poggio Civatella to finish the day off. Could be a day for Pippo Pozzato. He really would like this one. He's not won the Montepaschi race. He'd love to do something, and amazingly, if you look at, with the exception of the team time trial, all the individual stages so far, not a single Italian winner. And the last time that happened, 1973. And the Italians all looking at each other, the Italian press, all shaking their heads going, what on earth is going on? Pippo Pozzato will want to put the record straight today and try and get a win. Looks like that's what they are after today. Stage 7 then. Remember, now a total of 220 kilometers rather than 222, with the Volterra third category climb coming out of the race due to a landslide before they actually got here. Still two categorized climbs, the Passo del Raspatio at 180 kilometers in the second category, Poggio Civatella, to finish off this day today. It's a day for strongmen, there's no doubt about that. And maybe the weather just play into the hands of Vincenzo Nibali, who wants to keep that pink jersey on his shoulders. It might dissuade other people from having a real go. He lies in the overall lead, 13 seconds ahead of teammate Ivan Basso, and then Valerio Agnoli, the white jersey wearer, best young rider, at 22nd. Then Alexander Vinokurov at 33 seconds. He is going to be a big threat today. It's a good finish for him, and certainly the Italian press are pushing that one today. Vladimir Karpets lies 5th overall, 39 seconds, and then younger Richie Port from Team Saxo Bank, 6th place, 45 seconds. Miller still at 45 seconds in 7th spot for Garmin Transitions. Baden Cook lies 8th overall at 103, silently keeping himself there. Linus Gerdemann 9th at 104, and then Laurent Didier of Team Saxo Bank, the Luxembourg rider, at 113. That rounds out the top 10. Sean, a very different day once again here in the Giro d'Italia. They've certainly made it interesting, if sometimes for the wrong reasons, but it's certainly been an interesting Giro so far.
Yes, it's certainly interesting, very, very interesting, and it goes on today, another stage, as we get closer to the mountains. The stages have been really interesting, of course, the ones in Holland, majorly interesting from a spectator's point of view, and today again with this, the Ruta Bianca, it's going to be very, difficult in the end in that final. The riders have to be careful, and maybe not going to make a lot of difference between the big favourites, but mechanical is a danger one, and if you have a flat at the wrong time, you can lose a lot of seconds, and nervous times again for the big favourites.
Certainly is. We have to take a break early on, but 6:50 is the gap to our two breakaway riders. We are in Tuscany. It may be some cyclists' best place in the world, favourite place in the world, but today I doubt you'd want to be here. It's really very nasty indeed. 74.5 kilometres to go on this stage 7. They get a good old whacking of the Strade Bianche towards the end of the gravel roads, and a lot of these roads early on in the stage went over the favourite training roads of great champion Gino Bartali. It's 10 years since Bartali died, and this is the stage that's dedicated to him today. Great champion that he was. Wonderful photograph in the Gazzetta dello Sport of Gino Bartali's son and Fausto Coppi's son, reenacting that really famous a photograph of the two of them sharing a water bottle when they're away on an attack together. Great rivals, but ultimate respect for each other. Two totally different type of riders and have two totally different type of fans. Blimey, this is nasty. Ignatiev it is at the front. Really horrible weather today for the stage. And just as we thought the sun was beginning to poke through here on the Giro d'Italia, it's turned out nasty. The final run into the finish today goes over the Poggio Sitovella, and then there's a really quite hairy run down to the finish as well. It goes through the middle of the town at Montalcino. There's a cobbled section in it in the last kilometre, and it's twists and turns, and they're going to have to really watch themselves today. I would not be surprised if there wasn't a counter-attack today and a few people go, or you might even see a group of strong men go away. Those classics men you might see in any of the Ardennes Classics, for example, having a go, having a group of 10, then 5, and then 2, and then that sort of thing. That's the way it's going to go. They're really pushing on, though, here, the Katusha men, because they know with 73 kilometres to go, they've got to cut down the gap a little bit to our two breakaway men, who we haven't had any sight of at all so far. But they are Nicky Sorensen from Saxo Bank. He's lying 128th. And Rick Flens from Rabobank at 150th overall. Neither of them are a threat on the overall classification, but they do need to be brought back if somebody else wants to take the victory today. Once again, Sean, they've got the Russians on the front. Ignatiev doing a lot of work, and Klimov also there. Katusha have the bit between their teeth today.
Yes, they have, and of course with Pozzato, you know, a specialist in the classics. We've seen him in the Paris-Roubaix, the Tour of Flanders, and conditions today very much similar. Weather conditions, and also the route with this road. We're going to go on to this Strada Bianca, which is, you know, a dirt road, a gravel road, and if the rain continues on, and it looks like it's more persistent today and more widespread than it was in the past number of days. We had seen the team time trial a number of days ago, and we had some showers in the stages, but nothing as it is today. And if this goes on right to the end, well, it's going to be horrible conditions to go onto these gravel roads. In good conditions, dry weather, it would be very dangerous and very nervous times, but with the wet conditions, it's going to be chaos again, and we're going to see, you know, somebody, you know, will have mechanical problems. It's pretty much a guarantee. Hopefully, it's not some of the general class men, because it would be, I think, a cruel way to, you know, lose a bit of time here in this one. But everybody will be nervous and want to be up front, because there's a lot of very technical descents on the gravel. It's not only uphill; it goes downhill, uphill, and it's the bike handling, and you know, with a big group, it's going to be, you know, fighting there to be in the top 20-30 riders as they come onto that section. You know, and the first one is, you know, 26 kilometers in the finish, so it is very close to the finish, and you cannot afford, you know, to sit back. You have to really battle and try and get onto that section in the very front of the main bunch.
This is our first view of the two breakaway riders. 2:14 there is Nicky Sorensen. Twice a national champion, as you can see, riding for Saxo Bank, and a very fine rider, very strong man is the Dane. And the other rider with him is Rick Flens. Oh, he's having to stop, and Nicky Sorensen, I think, knew that. I mean, they had a quick chat about it. New bike for Flens. Chucks the other one on the side of the road. And Sorensen had already had a discussion about this. Probably he knew that the rear tyre or something similar needed to be done, or there was a problem. And they'll keep working together. No problems. They never attack in this sort of situation. They have to keep going. These two working together. A little bit of housekeeping. First of all, questions and comments can be sent in on cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com as we look down at the world champion there in the center of the shot, Cadel Evans. Or you can follow us and contribute, of course, on the Twitter feed Spokesmen, 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 in plural. And Eurosport UK TV is the, if you're British Eurosport. You can follow everything on there. And the first one that came in, actually, Samuel Tuck coming in on spokesman. So can you tell us a bit more about what happened to the riders yesterday who crashed? Yes, we can tell you. You're talking about Paolo Tirolongo and Guillaume Bonifant, I think. Well, no broken bones, thank goodness. That's the main thing. They went off. They went to Pontremoli, to the hospital, had x-rays. Both of them are abandoned, as you would expect, and they had a crash on the descent of the Spolvarina climb, if you can remember rightly. Also, Andrea Mascherelli had a crash as well. And neither of them broken any bones, but there's lots of contusions and bangs to the heads, and they had to withdraw. Andrea Mascherelli, he also had a fall on the Spolvarina, and he has rejoined the field. I should think he's very, very sore today, though. But that's the way it was. No broken bones, but all battered and bruised for Guillaume Bonifant and Paolo Tirolongo. Shoulder injury really is the main injury for Tirolongo. We did wonder whether it was his hips or femur, but it seems to be okay. But pretty bashed up. There were a lot of crashes yesterday. There was a big crash at 35 kilometers, which of course we didn't see. Florian Stadler of BMC, Guillaume Lafoche of Bouygues Telecom, Pablo Lastras of K-Stepan, Domenico Pozzovivo of the Colnago team, Michele Merlo of Futon Cerveto came out worst out of that because he retired later on in the day. Sylvester Schmidt of Liquigas, thankfully not hurt too much, certainly for Basso and Nibali's sake. Peter Wiening of Rabobank and Bradley Wiggins of Sky, all involved in that crash at 35 kilometers, but all got back into the race, but Michele Merlo having to pull out later. So the rundown of people no longer in this Giro d'Italia is Cola of BMC. He crashed on stage 2, a broken collarbone, also broke his wrist as well. Bonifant, who crashed yesterday. Paolo Tirolongo of Astana also crashed yesterday. They're both out. Marzio Bruzigin didn't start this morning. He's got a very sore hip thanks to that fall on stage 3 in towards Middelburg, where also Christian van der Velde was involved in that, if you remember. He's already withdrawn with a broken collarbone from that stage 3 crash with Bruzigin. Eros Karpecki couldn't start today. He's having real breathing problems, presumably from an infection. We don't know is the answer to that. We'll have to try and find out. And Michele Merlo abandoned yesterday, so 2 lost for Futon Cerveto. But even so, still 191 riders. There's a lot of them still. That's the way it is at the moment for retirees and the housekeeping stuff. 68.9 kilometers to go as Ignatieff flicks the elbow to let the next man come through. Lamprey also contributing a little bit to this. You would expect that Damiano Cunego would fancy this today. And they've just got the one man in there, though, Sean. They're not putting too many up the road at the moment. So they've seen that Katusha have this in mind, and they're just letting them get on with it, really.
Yes, and it's still interesting to see that they're putting a man in there because they don't have any other interests except for a stage victory here. I don't know about Cunego. Will he be able to do that in the wet conditions? I'm not too sure, but you know, the riders like Pataki, will he be able to get through today? You know, the hills are not long in the end, and we see him yesterday. He was getting aggressive there on the descent when he went away on his own. So they might have, you know, thinking of Pataki, maybe Hondo as well. He could get through there. So there's probably a few other riders in there that can do that style of racing quite good. And it's not really the climbs are going to cause the problem today. It's really this section of road where it's going to be, you know, very, very technical, good bike handling, classic style of ride that can do it well. A sprinter, as you know, as most of them are, they can ride well in those conditions. So you know, they probably have a few cars to play within the Lamprey team, and the pressure is on, as it is on Katusha as well, because you know, to get a win, if Pozzato doesn't get a win the next number of days in the mountains, he's not going to win. So it's the medium mountains or a stage like today is a perfect one for him.
68 kilometers to go with Ignatieff doing a sterling job on the front as per usual for Katusha. We'll take a short break. back. 66.5 kilometers to go for our race today, and we end up going over the Strada Bianchi, the white road section made famous in modern times by the Montepaschi race and the Eroica Sportive. Very tough race right at the beginning of the season. It's become an instant hit with the peloton as a race. They absolutely love it. And the first winner was Alexander Kolovnev, who's still riding for CSC. Who else has won it? Lundqvist has won it. Fantastic sections that we're coming up towards, but not today, I wouldn't think, with this sort of weather. Really rather nasty. And Katusha doing a lot of the work on the front. They have Filippo Pozzato, the Italian national champion, who's failed to win the Eroica race and would really very much like to take the stage today. And while we've got the time, then let's have a look at what the papers are saying, because it's absolutely pertinent. As here we are, rustle of papers once again. Very pertinent indeed. One of the first of the 4 sections of the paper today, the Gazzetta dello Sport, actually makes mention of the fact that not of the 5 individual stages so far in the Giro d'Italia, nobody from Italy has won a stage, and the last time that happened was in 1973. Matt Lloyd, of course, winning yesterday. Jérôme Pinault winning the day before. The team time trial was won by an Italian team, but they're talking about individual victories. Tyler Ferrara has won a stage, Walter Wayland has won a stage, and Bradley Wiggins has won a stage. So it's difficult times for the Italians. They're under pressure already. It just goes to show how important this race is to the Italian psyche, and it always has been. It was tremendously important after the Second World War, especially with the sort of rebuilding of the Italian national identity, and the fact that they gave themselves some pride in themselves by having this great race, and people wanted to come and race here. It's been absolutely ingrained in the Italian psyche. To not have an Italian winner in 5 stages is pretty grim for them at the moment, sure. They would have expected something from maybe a Pataki. Bernati, of course, is not here, but they would have expected something so far.
Yes, of course, their national tour, and very important for the Italian teams. There were not much about it in the first 3 days because we were out in Italy, we were in Holland, so the journalists did not, give them a bit of a hard time. But since we've been back in Italy, it's, coming on, rapidly now, and every day they're talking about it. And of course, Liquigas doing well. That is another bit of pressure, I suppose, on the teams as well. The Italian teams are with very good Italian riders that they want to get something out of as well. Liquigas taking all the exposure the last number of days with the pink jersey with Nibali, and that's also putting on extra pressure, not alone the journalists, because they could live with that, but I think the director of sportives within the teams, the Italian teams, and especially Rampre, they're saying, well, we're not getting anything out of this one. And when you look at the team they have got as well, like they haven't got riders for later on in the big mountain stages, so that's the extra bit of pressure there because of that. And today and the flat stages are good for Lampre, also for Pozzato with the Katusha team. Today is a day where he could do something and really have a go for a state victory.
He'll have to do some mighty work on the front. Ignatieff once again.
He loves it.
He does. He's grinning all over his face. He loves it. Big smile all over his little Russian chops. Nicky Sorensen, here it is in the breakaway, grimacing. And as somebody's already pointed out, as Peter McSharry's already pointed out on on Twitter, nice hack job on his waterproof there, his rain jacket. They've just hacked off the sleeves. It's fair enough. It's not super cold, it's just wet. And that's the whole reason, really. These two still working together. Sorensen, very, very experienced rider. 5:28. They had the Sastra group there. So anyway, 5:28 is the gap, and they're pushing on. This pair of orange specks improves the vision in this sort of light. They're not hanging about though, Sean. They're trying to give it as much as they possibly can, even with 60-odd kilometres still to go. They've got some glimmer of hope in them.
Yes, they have, and maybe that they want to try and get onto this section of dirt road in front of the bunch. 60 kilometres, a long ways to go with the advantage of, you know, the 5:28. But the other thing is they're probably saying, well, if we can, you know, hold them off and you know, keep the gap up to the 5-minute advantage, maybe they will start to lose heart as they get closer to finish. So try and break them, and that's sometimes as well, if you do that, really ride hard for a number of kilometres, 15, 20 kilometres, and they see that in the bunch they're not going to close it down, then they start saying, well, there's no way we're catching these. And it's not that for the general classement. If it was somebody up there danger general classement, well, then the team with the race leader would continue riding all day. But in a situation like this, sometimes the sprinters team say, oh no, we're not going to get them back, forget it, and they just stop riding. And I think maybe that could be the tactic of Sorensen, and he's an experienced one, as you said.
Yeah, he certainly is. Still Katusha pushing along on the front, 3 men. They've got piling on the pressure, and there's been a split in the peloton. You can see there's a whole group behind already, and it shows just how much work is being done by Katusha at the front, unless of course there's been a spill that we don't know about. I'm sure that there hasn't. And there's a big split here.
Yes, it's causing a lot of problems here.
Absolutely. Some riders not happy at all here, just almost sitting up. It's some of the B-Box Bouygues Telecom riders. Sky here in the black with the blue stripe down the back of the rain capes. It's a very, very difficult section. I wonder if they're just thinking, to hell with it. The weather's bad. Average race speed, look at that! 44.2 kilometres an hour in this weather.
That's the answer.
That'll be it then. Richard Mellon writing in on the Twitter feed saying, do you not think that the Italians might win in the mountains? Yeah, well, they might. It may be the case, but that doesn't stop the Italian press giving their own riders a hard time. They feel they should have had something by now. They haven't. Also, just moving on.
Of course, they give them the hard time to Pataki, and you know, a sprinter.
Pataki, really.
You know, there is a lot of riders there. We will see them coming to the fore when it really gets difficult in the mountains, the Italian riders. But yes, Pataki's come under pressure because, you know, these first number of days, those are the days where he can, you know, get the exposure, win stages for his team.
Who is in this group? This is the big question. Who is in this group? What we don't want to see is people being distance if they are favourites. It's a question of trying to find out who's there, really. It's very, very difficult on a day like today to tell who is who. That's Anders Lund in the middle. Looked a bit like Sastre for a minute, but it's a Saxo Bank rain cape. Number 211, Anders Lund, I think it is. The question is, have any of the really big favourites been put in real trouble here, and distance with 60 kilometres still to go? Very difficult to tell. Still, our two breakaway men have under 60 to go, as you can see. Nicky Sorensen pushing on real hard here. Going back to Gazzetta, fabulous pictures, I've said, on page 19 of Gino Bartali's son. And I think his name's Andrea. And Faustino, little Faustino, the son of Coppi, reenacting that wonderful and very, very famous photograph of, you know, when Fausto Coppi takes his bottle, or he's just taken his bottle out of the front of his off the front of his bike, because the bottle cages were hanging from the front of the handlebars at that time, and he's passed it backwards to Gino Bartali, which is absolutely fantastic. And they've reenacted that there on period bikes as well. Fab. Still just the one man from Lampre. Pushing on.
The gap is coming down rapidly. 3:20 was the last time check there, so that answers the question. Answers what we're seeing as well. The group is splitting, and it's really going very fast here.
We'll take a short break. There's a big split in the peloton. Are any of the favourites distance? That's the question. 58.6 kilometers in atrocious conditions here today on the Giro d'Italia stage 7. Finish is over the top of the Poggio I'll say it right in a minute. Poggio Civitella. 220 kilometers. They've had to knock off 2 kilometers going through Volterra, where the first categorized climb of the day was, at 110 kilometers. A landslide just before the ascent of that into that beautiful village. The World Heritage Centre actually is absolutely gorgeous. But the road blocked by a landslide, so they decided they always have alternatives. There's always an alternative route that goes on around these Grand Tours. So they've just skirted around Volterra, and it's knocked 2K off, and one categorized climb as well. The man in the mountains jersey today, of course, is Matthew Lloyd of the Omega Pharma Lotto squad, having won the stage yesterday and taken the maximum points over the top of all the climbs. In the red jersey of points, it's Tyler Ferrar. He's 3 points up on Graham Brown. Best young rider is Valerio Agnoli, lying 3rd overall in the general classification. And of course the pink jersey on the shoulders of Vincenzo Nibali. What about Vinokurov's chances today, Sean? I think they must be pretty good, to be honest. Or Garzelli. Didn't Garzelli win a stage a little bit like this a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, in filthy weather as well?
Yes, well, Garzelli, I think he's, you know, he's a good bike handler when it really gets technical, and in the final, when it is that way, he's able to, you know, defend himself well and keep up there. Vinokurov will surely be able to do it because he's that style of rider. And today is a stage for, again, you know, a very strong, powerful rider you can get through. As we talked about Pozzato, Vinokurov will surely be up there. Will he have a go and try and pull back some time, or will he just follow the other big favourites and just hold on to the position he's in at 33 seconds, which is a very nice position to be in 4th. In the 4th overall. That is the question. Now, will he have a go and try and get some time back and maybe go for a stage victory? That will be the interesting one. But Pozzato's one that, you know, he's really going for stage victories. That's where he can get his glory out of this race, and we'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of the favourites. If you look at them, you know, Carpets, for example, how will he manage on this section? I think he might have difficulty. Basso as well, not to maybe, you know, looking forward to this stage today with this, you know, gravel track in the wet conditions. I don't think he would be a lover of that. And as you go further down, Scarponi, I think he could have problems. Sastre, we see there, seems to be losing time. We see there that he was, you know, 3:58 down, so he seems to be in that split on the road, and it is going very fast because the gap, you know, has come down rapidly to 3:20 there in a very short space of time.
This is our breakaway duo of Nicky Sorensen at the front, running for Saxo Bank, and Rick Flens of Rabobank. Terrible puns on who's your money on today and all that sort of thing, but we're not going to bother. This is the pink jersey group of Vincenzo Nibali. He's just keeping himself well out of trouble here. Which of these two is going to slide out first then? Either of them? Recorded images of here. It's Nicky Sorensen in front and Rick Flens behind. Stuff another gel in, that's the way. Really filthy, horrible conditions today. But both of these men are used to racing in these conditions now and again. Rick Flens, big Dutch rider. Get a lot of this in Holland. And Nicky Sorensen has always been very, very tough indeed. He's getting constant time checks from behind, and also he needs, I think he's just asking for a few more things from the car. Trying to keep himself fueled up. The idea, of course, Sean, is to try and keep yourself from going into energy debt. Just keep it topped up all the time. 240 is the gap.
I don't know.
Indeed.
I think
it's over.
Yeah, it's over, and unfortunately for the two out front, you know, if there was not a team like Katusho really took it up and had big interest in trying to get it into a situation where they can have a go for a stage. They could have, held on for a long time. If it was a Lamprey again, they would have allowed them, because in the general classement they're a long ways off, both over 20 minutes down, so no problem at all. But unfortunately, other teams with interests, and that's really killed the possibility of going on and having some chance of making it to the finish.
The peloton filing through after the two breakaway men. It's still saying 3 minutes and 28 seconds to Sastra's group. And they're not quite on the Strada Bianchi yet, but that is a section of Strada Bianchi, as you can see on the right-hand side. That's what it's going to look like, folks. It's very hard-packed limestone. Tend not to get as many punctures as you have thought on it, but there will be tens of thousands of people out there that have... No, as Sean's just looked at me, and it's the curse of the commentator again. I've just done it again. I feel like there's going to be hundreds of punctures in the peloton now. Oh dear. I was going to say that tens of thousands of people have done the heroic sportive, and will know exactly what it's like to ride on. It's much harder packed than you perhaps would think it is. The worst thing about it when it gets dry is the dust. As Vincenzo Nibali takes off his rain cape. My apologies to all director sportives with Eurosport in English in their cars at the moment, because you never know. The pace is pretty high. 44.2 kilometers an hour is the average so far. So far, the pink jersey and all his cohorts around him, including Ivan Basso, so safely up at the front, keeping it rolling along. The World Champions jersey, Cadel Evans, is in there. You can see him in the rainbow stripes just at the far left of your picture. He's riding next to... I thought that was Garzelli for a minute, but it isn't. I think that's Andreotto just ahead of him. There's Pippo Pozzato with the white, bright white cape on, and you can just see the Italian champion's suit underneath, the shorts underneath. Nibali wanting to get up towards the front again. He's got most of the Liquigas team around him, and that's important, isn't it, Sean? He's got 6 or 7 men there. Vinokurov up towards the front of it as well. It's important to keep those men all around him on a day like today.
Yes, and they have, they have 2 men to protect, and they're going to stay around Nibali and Basso, and they're getting an easy ride at the moment because somebody else taking it up, as we see the gap, coming down to 220 now. You have to have the riders, but they're sparing a bit of their power here because another team want to really close this one down.
Shots you're getting live from the Giro d'Italia, stage 7 here. Under 50 kilometers to go, and they still have this section of Strada Bianchi to go. White roads, very hard packed stone surface, and it's a real problem at the moment. There's a big split in the peloton. 55 gap from our 2 breakaway men, Nicky Sorensen and Rick Flens. They had a lead of nearly 9 minutes at one time, Sean, but when Katusha got on the front for Pippo Pozzato, that's it. That's all they want. They're going to cut it down, and there's nothing these two can do about it.
No, there's unfortunately nothing. The numbers back in the front of the main bunch are just too strong, and fresh riders as well. I think they took it up a long time ago, but they haven't been riding as long as they're 2 out in front, and the numbers of riders we see, like there's at least 6 or 7 riders contributing to the pace setting up front. We see a Lamprey in there with him as well, a Lamprey rider. So they're really closing them down, and when you're out in front like that with 2 riders, it's possible they could ride a bit harder up front, but you can't do that with over 50 kilometers to go. It's just too early. quickly, and the bunch very, very active here, and they want to close them down before they get to the section of gravel road, and that starts at 26 kilometres roughly before the finish. So we're getting there, but it looks like they're not going to even make it to that section. And this gravel road, it is going to be, although it is very compacted, it's with the wet road is going to be very, very, very nervous times for everybody. The risk of crashes, that we're going to see some sliding off, punctures. It's a little bit more with the wet conditions as well, I think. That's a certainty. If it was dry, well then there's always a little possibility of getting a puncture, but today I think the big favourites are always worried that they get a puncture at the wrong time. And from the time we get on at 26 kilometres to finish, it's just going to go like full gas all the way to the finish. And if you have a mechanical, and as we said, when you look at the liquid gas team, they have a number of riders there. You definitely need a few good riders with you to get you back into the front. But it's always a nervous time for everybody, and anybody of interest of staying up in the front of this race, which are the general classmen men, and of course the men who are thinking of having a go for the stage victory today.
Nice to see that Cadel Evans has got some riders around him for a change. There's at least 3 BMC riders in this group as well. The news is that Carlos Sastre and also Marco Pinotti, you understand, have been distanced in the second group. 155 from Sorensen to this front group. Again, Mikhail Ignatiev and the Katusha team really driving it along. A couple of men from Lampre also putting some work in. Linus Gerdemann on the far left-hand side in the blue with the white arm warmers of Milram. It's Goret Stangeli in the yellow sleeveless rain jacket for Astana, and they are protecting, these two guys are protecting Alexander Vinokurov in the white-rimmed glasses on the right-hand side of your shot for Astana. Today could be a day for Vinokurov, it could be a day for Pozzato, it could be a day for somebody like a Garzelli. Who knows? It could even be a day for somebody like Nibali. I mean, he can stay well up there, Sean. Vincenzo Nibali, defend his pink jersey from the front.
Well, the finish today, it will be interesting to see how many riders will get to the final. There will be quite a big group, I would reckon, but the wet conditions are going to change a little bit. It might limit the number out front of the main, but normally you should get 40, 50 riders on a normal dry day to get to the finish. And if a rider is feeling good, well then you can do something. And Nibali, he can, I think he should be able to defend himself. He's not going to take big risks, that's the thing here in the final. And when you look at the run-in today, the last kilometre starts to go downhill, but as you go through the town itself, there's a section of cobbles, and if it continues on to be wet roads, it seems to be drying out a bit. He's not going to take the big risk, just have a go for a stage, and I think he will just back off a little bit when the danger is great.
Sorensen now beginning to look over his shoulder, because very shortly a lot of these cars are coming up and past. He knows that the day is run. These are team cars that are beginning to pass these two. Now, will things ease up a little bit now they've shut this down, Sean? Is that what Sastre is calculating on, maybe? He'll have his riders around him. They might be able to bring him back to this big group. There are 2 groups on the road at the moment with Cervelo. They weren't really marshalling their troops particularly well, I have to say. Maybe they're all scattered around all over the place, but Sastre and Pinotti as well. Distance. Now, Pinotti's not very far down in the overall classification, remember. He's at 17th place, 201 back. So we'll just have to see. Do you think the pace will come off a little bit when they reach these two, Sean?
If I was in Sastre's position, I'd not be taking the risk on that will slow up, because we're getting to, closer and closer to the very important part of the stage, and I think he'll just continue on. There's riders here who will be wanting to stay up front, and a lot of movement we see already with teams positioning their leaders on the front, and I cannot see it slowing down at all. So for Sastre, he has to get in there very, very quickly, and he's going to have to make the effort here. And when you do that, and as this section on the dirt road, it's not the type of terrain that Sastre will be looking forward to at all, and it looks like that he could lose some very valuable time today. And I see it, hard for them to get back in. And I think Tondo, the other rider, where is he? He's a rider like for the general classement. Pinotti, he's up there at the moment, but he's not really a general classement at the end of this race. Where Tondo, he could, be very much up in the top 10, top 5 riders in the end of this Tour of Italy. So it could be a disastrous day for Cervelo if the two of them lose a lot of time.
It could be. They'll have to bury themselves on the front. The other domestics around if they're going to bring this one back at all. Cervelo test team. Carlos Sastre wearing number 71 and Javier Tondo at the other end of the scale, 79. The two of them locked together on the general classification and 19th and 20th overall. The riders will be working hard to try and bring this one back. Vladimir Gustov, Ted King, Ignatius Konovalovas, Dan Lloyd, Marcel Wies and Gabriel Rasch trying to get this all back together. But a really bad time for Carlos Sastre. Horrible weather, and as you say, Sean, it's not the finish for him at all. It really is a classics type finish. Well, you can see the peloton are right behind them almost. Sorensen and Flens just almost turning over the pedals now, rather than keeping it going super hard. Cadel is the rider on the front for Aqua and Saponi, a rider you could never mistake in a million years. Cadel, he's just got one of them faces, isn't he? He's got 3 riders behind him. Stefano Garzelli. Day is run for these two, and they'll be now, I guess, Sean, talking to the team cars, wondering, well, what do we do now? What is the plan now? What do you want us to do now? If you've got anything left in the legs, is there a plan for these two, or they just get their way to the end?
Well, I think
it's too far out, really, isn't it?
we can see, yes, well, for the two here, like it's game over today. Have they got anything left after the effort? It's going to be difficult for them. Back in the bunch, the tactic we can see has changed a little bit. There's a little bit of a slowdown, okay. We don't see the Katusha team as much on the front, and they know that they have, done the job. They've taken back the 2 danger men. So, we're in a situation now where the stage victory is to go for, and that's what Katusha are thinking about. And they're taking a little bit of a lull time, but they will ride again before we get to the gravel section. The dirt road, they will definitely up the gas once again.
42.7 kilometers. The weather foul today, and there's been a big split in the peloton, catching out Carlos Sastre. Looking back, there's a few nerves around as Dario Cioni decides to go on a bit of an attack. 52 kilometers out. No other Sky men around much. There's a couple, but not a huge amount of them. Vinokurov looking across at him going, what on earth are you playing at? As Dario Cioni goes off. Astana, we've noticed, Sean, they've come to the front as this gap has come right down. And you were pointing out that at the beginning of this race, Alexander Vinokurov said publicly Carlos Sastre is a danger man for him. So they're just keeping this rolling, I take it, keeping it going all the time. They don't want to let the Carlos Sastre and et al. Get back to them.
No, and there was a little bit of a downtime there from the teams, and we see the Astana has just taken it on here, and I think he knows that Sastre, he's a danger man, and he wants to put a bit of time into him before they really get to the big mountain stages, and that is pretty clear to see that Sastre, if you allow him to get to the mountains with 2 or 3 minutes off the race lead of the pink jersey, he's always a danger man, because in the mountaintop finish with such steep ones in the last week of this one, he could pull back quite a lot of time.
41 kilometers still to go. Now remember, when we hit the white roads of Strada Bianchi, we've got still about 20 kilometers to go, and it's not easy terrain, Sean, is it? It's up and down all the time. I mean, it's up and down here on the tarmac. It's going to make an awful lot worse when we hit the gravel.
Yes, well, we're in the fourth section of this race. Up to the 100 kilometers was pan flat, but from there on it's up and down, and on the gravel section, the dirt road section, it is very, very difficult. Quite a lot of longer climbs, and it is difficult terrain. And being in the wet all day as well, that doesn't help the riders, because the rain, it does give you a little bit of sore legs, and we could see some surprises today, not only from maybe mechanical problem, but also riders having difficulty staying up there with the pace, and because of the road being very, very technical, we could see some surprises in the general classement.
This is Cioni. He's not far off teammate Wiggins in terms of time in the overall classification. Cioni just one place behind Bradley Wiggins at 4:49 today. And Cioni, we can almost claim him to be British, can't we, with English grandparents living in Reading. And Cioni going off by himself with still some way to go. You can see Wiggins in this group as well here. He's clearly going okay. Gasparotto for Astana is the man just in front of his team leader Alexander Vinokurov, who's gritting his teeth and can deal with this sort of weather quite nicely. And Vincenzo Nibali looking over his shoulder at him, doesn't want him to get away. Garzelli looking at him as well. They're worried about Vinokurov and Vinokurov's intentions, Sean. He's clearly, I mean, he's not a rider that hides intentions very well, is he, Vinokurov? If he's got tail feathers up, you can see it.
Well, yes, you can see it, and when you put the team to the front in a situation where he doesn't have to do it really, because he's not race leader. To win the stage here, he has a good chance, but there's a lot of other very good candidates as well. And when you see a rider like Vinokurov doing that, well, then you say to yourself, well, he's going to have a go today. What's he up to? What's the tactic? And it is making the other general classement men very nervous, as we can see a lot of marking, a lot of looking at each other there on the front of the bunch.
Cioni's not getting too far up the road.
I'm not surprised with the way it's going on the front of the bunch. Difficult for anybody to pull an advantage out here.
They're keeping it rolling really strongly. Astana are the team that are doing all the work. It's Grifko slipping off the back. He's one of the Astana riders not feeling too good at the moment. We're on a categorized climb now, Sean, I think.
Yes, we're on this Paso del Raspatio. So it's causing problems, as we can see here. Riders losing ground, and it's it's not a difficult one really, but I think very aggressive racing today. The weather conditions, riders starting to pay the price. And the last time we were here, the winner was Moreno Argentine in 1987.
Argentine. Super rider, former world champion. Put a man to you beat in that famous Milan San Remo. But it wasn't a day like today. The weather was nice on that day.
Well, you would certainly need a nice day to descend the Poggio.
Absolutely. Well, the way you did, he would. Fair bouncing off the walls, you were. Dario Cioni is out by himself. Absolutely going nowhere, I'm afraid. This group behind, including Cadel, Evans, the other riders in this group, Alexander Vinokurov, Ivan Basso, Vincenzo Nibali. Big jersey, the leader of the race. And Stefano Garzelli is in here as well, and his team are closing this down now. They're contributing to the pace setting on the front. It's gradually going to come back, and Cioni, just a bit of a wasted effort really. Still some way to go to the Strada Bianchi. going to be a telling time. Katusha not having to do any work now. Sean having done all the work to shut down the brake. Mikhail Ignatiev doing monster turns on the front. The only man we can see up towards the front was Vladimir Karpets, the big Katusha rider. You can see about 10 or so back in the orange-rimmed glasses. Trying to keep himself out of trouble. Katusha have sort of really spent themselves today. It's down to Karpets to keep it going, and Pozzato there as well.
Yes, well, they have put in a big effort to close down that gap, you know, rapidly for our two leaders, Flens and Sorensen, and some of them are paying the price. But I think there's, you know, possibly a few of them just waiting here. There's enough teams prepared to contribute here and keep the pace very high, and you know, they don't need to continue on putting men on the front then within the Katusha. Save them for later, and I think we could see a couple of the Katusha riders coming to the front as we get to the very important section, and to keep Pozzato and Karpets up front. The other two men for today, and you know, but causing a lot of problems here. This, you know, already that the bunch is really pulled out, riders losing contact, gaps appearing everywhere. It's, I think it's turning out to be a more difficult day than a lot of the riders, and I certainly, you know, did not expect to see the bunch breaking up as much. But with the conditions and, you know, the average as well, over 44 kilometers per hour average for the day, it's some of the riders are paying the price here.
There is Carlos Sastre, and behind him is Javier Tondo, the two of them together.
And where are they is the question.
Well, this is the question. The interesting thing here is that we've had somebody writing in on the Twitter feed saying that, well, look, this is the front group, saying exactly what this chap was saying on the Twitter feed, that the Spanish TV stations have been talking to Cervelo Test Team's director Sportive and saying that Sastre is in the front group, and so is Tondo. And now we can see it. Wow. Lots of information wrongly fed today. And certainly it's caught everybody out in the race as well. That is the latest news then, that Sastre is in this front group. Whether he's had to come back into this front group or not is something else, but I don't think that's been the case, Sean, because there's still a big group off the back of this, I think.
Yes, although the group that Sastre was in, it was going very, very fast in that group, and a lot of riders pulling it on. So I think he could have, you know, been a little bit of a split, but not too far off. The gap wasn't great, and I reckon that he just made it back into it. You'd be surprised to see that you know, they would, although with the rain course, it's difficult for, you know, the people out there to get the numbers as well and to relay back that through race radio. But I think he was in a split there, but luckily that he's got back in here, and the gap was never grew out to be too great.
Well, slightly worrying for Carlos Sastre. He's managed to get back in there. Tondo as well. What would the two of them have done? Would they worked with each other, Sean? Does the team have to work for both of them to get them up there? And presumably they do. Well,
I think the team, yes, you know, the riders, they would pull everybody. If there was anybody out in the front group, they would be immediately called back just to come back to the second group and just close down the gap. And I reckon that they put, you know, the riders they had, all the riders they've got, except for Tondo and Sastre, again, to, you know, really work and close it down. And I reckon that's what was the tactic.
Don't adjust your sets. Look at this. Recorded pictures. Watch that left-hand bend. Wallop. Do you know who that is? It's Vincenzo Nibali, the race leader in the Maglia Rosa, is on the floor. Also Valerio and Agnoli in the white jersey is there. Ivan Basso went down. There are two Cervelo riders in that group as well. We have to assume that it must be Tondo and Sastre. It's so difficult to tell. We can't tell a number from up here. I think Sastre is one of them. But Nibali on the floor, and Agnoli was absolutely screaming at Basso. And Nibali getting a bike change here. You should have seen the gesticulations from Valerio Agnoli a little bit earlier on. New bike for Nibali. Agnoli is on the right-hand side of your screen. And Basso also went down. Complete disaster for the Liquigas riders. The race leader on the floor. There we are, looking at the replay. Wallop across the road. And the chase was on because Linus Gerdemann was descending like a stone. And just as soon as we went to the break, we said that something's going to happen here. Look at this. Look at the split that's happened. This is Gerdemann on the left-hand side in the blue of Milram. And Stefano Garzelli is in this group here. Alexander Vinokurov is in this group here.
Vinokurov is not going to ride here. He's just
just going to wait.
Yeah, he's making the hand signal and he's saying, well, the guys have crashed. It's not the thing to do to ride on here and really up the pace. Yep,
yeah, and Garzelli has just pulled his teammate back as well. Little hand on the back pocket saying, no, stop, stop, stop. Now, who's the other Milram rider here? Gerdemann sat up. With 32 kilometers to go, intermediate sprinted Merlot. That's not going to get any further, surely. Well, one of the riders from Milram is keen to continue. Seems to have found the lowest gear on his bike as well. And it's Rohringer, I think. But back down the slope a little bit as Linus Gerdemann, also Stefano Garzelli, Alexander Vinokurov. There's a split here in what they want to do. They're not quite sure what they want to do here. Oh, absolute disaster for it is Thomas Rohringer. I'm sure I was certain it was Rohringer, one of my outside favourites for a really good place here in the Giro d'Italia, as I said a few days ago. But he's keen to keep the pace moving a little bit. There's a fine line, isn't there, Sean, between sitting up and waiting and just keeping it rolling but not attacking. But Rohringer, I think, is on the wrong side of it at the moment.
Yes, and we can see the big favourites are the ones who are not really, prepared to ride here. Rohringer, maybe an outside rider to do something in this race, but the other main favourites are not prepared to ride on here and really push it on. And we see Vinokurov immediately just sitting up, looking around, and it's a normal thing to do when the race leader crash, not to really start attacking and really up the pace.
This is the group here then. No, Sastra's not in there, surely. Got that wrong for a start. This is Alexander Vinokurov, who's definitely sat up, didn't want to attack. Neither did Garzelli. Garzelli went forward, took his teammate by the back of the pocket and went, whoa, slow it down, slow it down. Pippo Pozzato is on the frontier, the Italian champion. He's got behind him Cadel Evans. Shut down this gap if they possibly can. 30 kilometers to go, it's blown to pieces. There is Vincenzo Nibali, the race leader. He's got Agnoli next to him. And the two riders in there from Cervelo. We have to assume, Sean, that one of them is, it looked like Sastra, a little bit hunched over the bars just as he went through there. And Tondo much taller, but two riders taken down in that crash as well. And they were so close to the pink jersey, you'd have to expect them to be Sastra and Tondo.
Yes, and we could see the crash. It looked like Nibali was the one who slided out, just lost contact, so lost grip, and down he went. And a lot of the liquid gas riders going down with him all together, and of course he had the other favourites. It looks like it has to be one of the general classmen from the Cervelo team, and it looked like it has to be Sastra, I think, or Tondo, but very difficult to see in the conditions.
There is Vincenzo Nibali hitting the deck real hard. And Agnoli is the rider at the front in the white jersey, of best young rider, driving this group along now, trying to make some sort of impression on the gap that's opened up. They went away on that left-hand corner, and we said, as sure as eggs is eggs, something's going to happen. We thought actually it might be Gerdemann, because as he went away like a rocket and hunched over the bike and tried to descend as fast as he possibly could. And in these conditions, just not good. Get away, says the motorcycle. They say to the motorcycle, oh, come on, that's a bit off. Trying to get back here. There's the two Cervelo riders in the middle of the group here. We can just get a closer number on them. That looks like... tell. Still difficult to tell. The Saxo Bank rider in the group. It looks to me as though it's Cook, Baden Cook. and 17 back to this group of the Maglia Rosa. And what a dramatic day we've had so far. And we haven't even hit the Strade Bianche yet, Sean. It's still all go here.
Yes, it's really, you know, difficult times for everybody, and there's just groups and riders scattered everywhere, as we can see. And it looks like it is Sastre and Tondo there from the Cervelo team. It's causing so much problems, you know, the wet conditions and then the crashes thrown in, and we haven't got to the most difficult part and the most maybe dangerous part of it. But we are getting close now, because with 28 kilometers, we're about to come on to, I think, 26 kilometers roughly to the finish. We're coming to it, so we're getting very close.
What do these guys do now, Sean? There's two men in here definitely trying to push things on. Thomas Rohringer of Team Milram, even though Linus Gerdemann seems to have different ideas about doing that. Alexander Vinokurov still waiting in the back. And now the game plan will change. The other man in this breakaway who's pushing things on, or this little group that's pushing things on, is Beckelens of Omega Pharma Lotto, a former winner of the Tour de l'Avenir. You can see him right at the front now. Now, he and Rohringer have got it between their teeth to actually push on. I mean, what do you do now, Sean, when two guys want to keep going? What do you do?
Well, yeah, you just sit there and wait.
Sorry, we're going to interrupt you because we've got to go for a commercial break. Sorry about that. Welcome back. Oh, look where we have arrived. It's a Strade Bianche in this normally hard, compact surface. And I said the biggest problem with this is dust. All that dust has formed a slick on the top. You might as well get President Obama to clear all this lot up. It's just like that. It's horrible. We've already seen two or three riders sliding really wide on corners, and it's going to be an absolute carnage fest if we're not careful. This is really revolting stuff. Linus Gerdemann going for this one now. Just look at this. You know how that feels, Sean, to look a bit like that.
Yes, certainly do. And although the ride on this side, on this terrain is a little bit more comfortable than in the Paris-Roubaix, but still, you know, what conditions we're getting today. The rain has made it so difficult, and it's going to, you know, cause so much problems for everybody. And we're just getting 130 roughly for the pink jersey down on the front of the race. And just before we went to the break, we could see the riders wanting to pull on the front, but we see Vinokurov just sitting there and sit on. And that's what you've got to do, I think, as a big favourite. You know, you do not really force the pace. Other riders, if they want to do it, you allow them to do that, but you just follow, and they will, you know, they will see that. The other big favourites will see that, and I think later on the race maybe they might, you know, remember that.
Now, that's the question we were asking before we went to the commercial break. What do you do in that sort of situation? You've got two riders who are not big favourites, who are clearly up there. I mean, especially Rohringer, for example, who's pretty good on the overall classification. He's 12th overall. He's only 1 minute and 16 seconds down, you see, on the overall classification. But he didn't come here as a big favourite, even though a few of us thought he could be doing something here. Just looking back at this, this is the crash again, is it? No. Or is this another crash?
Another one?
Oh, no, this is the crash. Yes, Vincenzo Nibali in the ditch with Agnoli and Basso, and problems for Sastre and Tondo. Both of them having to sort their bikes out, drop the chain by the look of it. Real disaster here. And they've entered the Strade Bianche, and it's absolutely foul. Well, our apologies if it seems that once again the ad breaks have come in completely the wrong places. And there's been so much action today that we couldn't really help it. Oh, look. Now, that's what happened to Basso. He came down on that corner afterwards. Now, I wonder what was on that corner then. That's interesting. This is looks like Garzelli. And this is really horrible, horrible conditions. Stefano Garzelli, as you can see, former Giro d'Italia winner back in 2000, and trying to push on as much as possible to regain ground on those riders ahead of him. Linus Gerdemann is one of them. I think Alexander Vinokurov is another, and Jan Bekelens, by the look of it, Sean, in this front group. Bekelens, very talented rider, winner of the Tour de l'Avenir, should know a thing too about foul conditions, being a Belgian as well.
Yes, and you know, he's probably thinking the stage, I think, is up for grabs, and he's going to push on. And if you're only for the stage victory, well, then you do not get concerned about the other general classement men. But we can see the real general classement man up here, Vino, but Garzelli as well seems to be contributing, but earlier on having trouble now following here, and I think he just wanted to get onto this section as quickly as possible, and before the other ones catch up with him, and having a little bit of problem staying with our other leaders here at the moment, and it's going to be difficult times for everybody here, as we can see the riders just scattered everywhere.
Oh,
and
it's so horrible, isn't it?
Even Pozzato also is the one who seemed to have earlier on. We see him.
Look at Evans. Evans is catching the front runners.
Evans, yes, it was.
What a ride!
Evans is doing very well. We could see him there. He was cornering very well, and Pozzato seemed to have problems following that group of Evans, which is surprising.
Well, no, Evans, as you remember, is a former mountain biker, former World Cup winner. He knows a thing or two about slippery surfaces. It's Bekelens. They have it down as Roeriger in that group. I don't think it is. It looks more like Gerdeman's style to me. This is the pink jersey of Vincenzo Nibali and the white jersey of Valerio Agnoli. They're driving to try and limit the losses more than anything else now. This is only the first section of Strade Bianche, Sean.
Yes, and of course we have two sections. The first section is 5.5 kilometers, but the second section is
13.9.
13.9.
Yep.
So a long section, but we haven't seen, because between the two sections not a lot of asphalt roads, and they could have went across it there, because we're flashing so much back and forth to different groups here. Difficult to know exactly. 22 kilometers at the moment from the finish, so we still have quite a lot of this terrain to get over yet. This
terrain goes on until 5 kilometers from the end. Pozzato doesn't like it. He really doesn't like it. Fantastic riding by Evans, though. I mean, he's almost made that front group now of Garzelli, and I think Gerdeman. Bekelens is in there, and Vinokurov. 13.9 kilometers in total for the second section of Strade Bianche. It finishes 5 kilometers. No, this is the first section. Look, here is the asphalt that they're coming onto now. That's just the first bit. And now we've got another nearly 14 kilometers of this after 2 kilometers of asphalt. Oh, my word. This really is absolutely, well, incredible. There are Sastre and Tondo locked together next door to each other. The two Cervelo men just behind one of the riders from Aqua and Sapone. There is the pink jersey of Vincenzo Nibali. He's got around him most of the Liquigas squad now. There's Tondo, you can see 79, the first time we've seen a clear shot of him there for Cervelo test team. And thundering on through this dreadful, dreadful condition on the Strade Bianche. They have yet to get to this asphalt section. Now they're just sort of recouping, gathering their forces, get some gels or anything down their face while they can. Garzelli in the red. This is Alexander Vinokurov in the blue that's more like brown now. Everything is. There's Thomas Roeriger. What a day that he's having. Roeriger, who started well up on the overall classification, 12th today at 1 minute and 16 seconds. Bekelens of the Omega Pharma Lotto squad. It's got to a fairly big group again now, Sean. They've got a whole group of them got together. It's swelled to about, what, 20 riders now?
Yes, 20-25 riders, yep. And we can see that there's a little bit of a downtime here at the moment, looking at each other who's going to continue on pushing, and that's the case when you get onto the dirt road. Everybody is just nervous and they want, to ride on through it, get through it as quick as possible. But on this good section of road now, they seem to be grouping up a bit together, so that should help for our race leaders to get back into the front group.
Oh, fantastic. This is what it must have been like in the Giro d'Italia and, of course, the Tour de France before the Second World War, and in fact even after it. This is what it used to be like, folks. Not what it is like now, but what it used to be like when the weather turned bad. But it just goes to show a bike rider is still a bike rider. They still give it 110% even when it's dreadful conditions. Pozzato has managed to get back to this group. Miller's in there. That's David Miller just going through the shot. Looks like Gustav Erik Larsson there. And of the Saxo Bank squad. There's some tired legs here as well, for sure. They're not like some riders are really not liking this, and now we've got 13.9 kilometers to go. Well, Jean Gadret in the middle of your shot. Well, there's not much left of his. Well, at least his shorts match everything else. Damiano Cunego in this group. Linus Gerdeman, Alexander Vinokurov, Stefano Garzelli. Right at the front now, Jan Bekelens, the young Belgian rider of Omega Pharma Lotto. The pink jersey of our leader, Vincenzo Nibali, today really suffering. Came down hard on a crash on a right-hand bend, along with Valiero Agnoli. And then just afterwards, Ivan Basso. Must have been something on the road, or must have been just a slick of water or something, because a whole bunch of them went down. Wow. This is real racing, folks. Is that Vinokurov with a problem? I'm sure it is. One of the Astana riders in this front group has had a problem. He's got off his bike. It must be Alexander Vinokurov. I don't see him here, Sean, and he would be up the front if he possibly could be.
Yes, and he was there just moments ago, so it looks very much so that it is Vinokurov that's the problem, as Cunego just pushes on here. And when they come off that section of road, very, very difficult section there, uphill on the tar road, and everybody really suffering, as we can see. A lot of people having problems just staying in that front group.
Nibali looking very, very second hand on the right-hand side. Oh, he's not a happy man at all. And Scarponi in this group. Michele Scarponi at the front. Scarponi, one of the outside favourites, is certainly a man to stay up somewhere close to the top of the general classification. Goes under the 20 kilometre to go banner, leading the man who was in pink at the beginning of this day, Vincenzo Nibali. And we said right at the top of the broadcast, today would be the first day where he has to defend this, pretty properly defend it. And Cunego is going out his own into the Strada Bianchi again. This section is now 13.9 kilometers long, and bumpy too, this one. Oh, who's going to go down first? This is the question. My word, Roriger. Or is it Gerdeman who's gone with him? Oh, straight up the inside. And Bekelens has gone across to this trio now as well. Barney pushing on by himself. I don't think he's going to be in pink at the end of the day. The question is, who is of the riders who are up front? Linus Gerdeman is at 1:04. Roriger, his teammate, is at 1:16. Vinokurov is at 33 seconds, of course. Carpet's got into this front group again as well. That's 39. Haven't seen anything of Richie Port of Saxo Bank. I don't know whether he's there or not. I simply don't know. There is David Miller, number 111. 215 there. Just looking in there is Gustav Erik Larsson. You can see. It looks like Bradley Wiggins, the former Bradley Wiggins, the slightly less heavily built rider in the Sky outfit. It's Cadel Evans driving this group along with Stefano Garzelli in his wheel. Jean Gadret, well, we expect Gadret to be there, or if he's in good shape, because Gadret, of course, is a former cyclocross champion from France. How would you fancy doing this today, Sean?
Well, it's depending on your, the style of rider you are. If you can ride well in the classic races, and that is very much like a classic here today. You know, very slippy conditions, and you know you can do that. But there's always a problem of a mechanical problem. That is the big danger.
Just
here.
like this. Push back on. This is just absolute carnage, as it's going to be. We're not very careful. I think that was Lastras. Lots of people saying they all look like Futon Cerveto riders now. There, you've got a point. Although somebody did say that when Futon Cerveto riders hit the deck, it does look as though they've ripped their shorts to pieces, and there's half the backside hanging out, or half their body hanging out the jerseys. Damiano Cunego, and must be Lasson here. There we go. This is the advantage of having a fluorescent bike, you see. Cunego is the man with Gustave Lasson pushing on. How on earth have the AG2R riders managed to stay fairly clean there? Simply don't get it. Fighting their way back from the back here is Rigoberto Urán. Young Urán. Okay, Stepani. Now, we do try these days, we know there's so many new cycling fans coming through that we do try and point out the colours of the jerseys whenever we can. Now, I don't think there's much point at the moment. You'll just have to take our word for it. We'll try and tell you who is who, on what side of the road they are, and so on. But as far as colours go, forget it. It's not your day today. The HTC Columbia rider who was just setting pace on the front was Marco Pinotti. He's done well to get up there, Sean.
Yes, he's doing a good job. Anybody up here in the front is doing a nice job at the moment. As we can see, 140 back to the race leader, and we could see, you know, at a moment the race leader was on his own, Nibali, and he seemed to just wait until he was joined up by a number of riders, and now he's got a lot of his number of his teammates with him, and a lot of other riders here. So, and his chances, or his hope, is that there's a few riders here, maybe with teammates that are interested in the general classement, and that they will help to push this one on, because up front the group has after grown out to be quite a large one.
This is Sastre, Carlos Sastre for Cervelo test team. Almost you just pick him out through this mud splattered lens of the Moto Camry. Oh my word, cars everywhere, bikes everywhere, Moto cameras everywhere, and still they push on at the front. 13.9 kilometers we had. Alexander Vinokurov has, is it Stangeli with him? The big Slovenian rider from Astana. Garzelli is riding alongside him. I have to say, I've been a vocal critic of Alexander Vinokurov over the last week or so, having so much liked him as a rider at one time. But I've got to say, credit where credit's due. He did exactly the right thing in sitting up and waiting when Nibali hit the deck. Matthias Brandl, the Austrian champion, is in there. And so did Stefano Garzelli. Rorigo was the man who really wanted to push on, and Jan Bekelens from Omega Pharma Lotto. Very fine balancing act, but as Sean was pointing out, if you're a big favourite, just knock it back, let the other guys do it. People will notice. This is Tondo and Sastre. Still distanced. And the question is, are they distanced behind or in front of Vincenzo Nibali? 15 kilometers to go. Remember, another 10 still of this on the cards. And it's just calmed down a little bit.
I think they're on an uphill section here. It's proving to be very difficult, and that's what I think is calming this group uphill on this terrain. Like, it's very, very difficult to move quickly, and everybody's suffering, as we can see here. You know, Garzelli really digging in here, and it's going to be, you know, go on for quite a number of kilometers yet. So the interesting thing is to see where Sastre is, but I think Sastre was originally in this group, so it looks like that he's just back in the cars here, so he's ahead of the race leader Nibali.
I think actually the Saxo Bank rider who went away in the break might have been Laurent Didier, but the Luxembourg rider. You'll just have to forgive us, a little bit difficult to tell who's who at the moment. Lasson is looks a bit fuller of face than Didier, and I think that's what I'm picking up on there. Rather a hatchet face as Didier. This is Nibali. Still fighting on. He's still got men around him. Ivan Basso is the man in front of him. Big losers today are Carlos Sastre, Javier Tondo, Michele Scarponi, and of course the race leader Vincenzo Nibali and Valerio Agnoli. Also suffering, the best young rider. Well, his natural physical attributes coming out to the fore now. Alexander Vinokurov, he is a tough SOB, he certainly is. And just showing how tough he is as well is Cadel Evans. Here goes Vinokurov around the outside, seeing who can go with him. Pinotti tries and can't, and it's Evans who gets on to that little dig. Well, that would be something, wouldn't it, if the world champion could come to the top of this final climb of the day. The Poggio Civitella ahead of everybody else. Vinokurov flicks the elbow for Evans to come through and do some work, and he dutifully does. There he is. The two of them have to work together. They know they've got good legs today. Well, it shows how tough Vinokurov is. It also shows what a good bike handler Cadel Evans is as well, Tron.
Yes, it's proving for Evans is doing a very good job here. Vinokurov, I would have expected. Evans, I thought he might have a little more difficulty, but he's getting through it very well, and very impressive. Not only where it's difficulty at the climbing, and of course from the mountain biking, there would be a lot of resemblance here. But on the the faster sections, he was cornering very well, and of course yes, the mountain biking would help, and that the mountain biking is coming out now. We can see that he is really doing very well on this very technical and very difficult condition.
He is indeed. And the other man who's sitting behind Stefano Garzelli is the other mountain biker, Jean Gadret. It's Nibali's group very briefly we've seen, and Vinokurov, he's been doing this for the last 10 kilometers. He has got everything in his eyes. And Evans as well is pushing they're absolutely caked. Wow. Somebody please go and get me Evans's jersey at the end of this. I want that mud splattered in my collection. Oh, what a day. Can you imagine? I mean, you had races like this when you did Paris-Roubaix, Sean, but can you imagine doing Grand Tours where the weather went on like this day after day after day on these sort of roads?
Well, the problem isn't in the big tours have to do it, and the general classement is a 3-week tour, but just in one day over a section of road like this, you can lose so much, and that is the big risk for the general classement men. In a Paris-Roubaix, there's always a risk there, but if you have a mechanical problem the wrong time, well, you lose on the race, but you can lose all within a 3-week race here in the last hour and a half of racing. You can just you lose so much time that it puts you totally out of the general classement contention.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't imagine what it must have been like if you see those shots, black and white and sepia, grainy shots of the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France in this sort of condition. Year in, year out. That's a brilliant ride. Look, by Marco Pinotti, the HTC Columbia rider, sitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this group now, and riding back up to Evans and Vinokurov was Damiano Cunego, making it happen. Scarponi losing ground. Well, they're all fighting, and Vincenzo Nibali is all by himself. And the pink jersey's churning over a gear and clearly suffering. What a day it's been, Sean. It's been absolutely, I mean, however it has been for the riders, I mean, you've got to take your hats off. Chapeau to all of them, because it's been the most incredible days racing.
Yes, it's proved to be such a vital stage, and we knew that you know, it could be that, and with the dry conditions, you know, it would have been a dangerous one. But with these horrible weather conditions, it's just totally you know, changed the race and made it so difficult for everybody. And you know, there's so much happening here at the moment, and we're still quite a number of kilometres in the finish, and we can see Nibali there, who is really suffering to keep it going, and you know, where is he at the moment? Is he after losing contact with some of the riders he was with, or are they after just dropping off? As we can see, he's looking about. Scarponi also having major difficulty. So, you know, the general class of it men, you know, at this time having difficulty, they can lose quite a lot of minutes before the finish.
They're off the Strada Bianchi now. I think he's waiting for Basso. I think that's what he was doing, Nibali now. Scarponi here. Fighting on that sort of crooked back, hunchback, hawk nose look of his. Tell you what, shots like this take you back 50, 60, 70 years. They might as well be that. Scarponi is dropped off the back. It's Gazzelli riding next door to Alexander Vinokurov, the red jersey of Stefano Gazzelli, next to the blue jersey of Alexander Vinokurov. The world champion, Cadel Evans, is here, just right in front of you there. And then Damiano Cunego for Lampre in the blue and pink. Sometimes you can see them over the top. I think they're giving it as much as they possibly can in terms of paces. Nobody can go any faster than this at the moment. Marco Pinotti, fab ride by the Italian in the HTC Columbia jersey. And there is Nibali. He was definitely waiting. I think that's Basso he's been waiting for there, next door to him. They're scattered out all over the place, Sean. They're everywhere at the moment.
Yes, riders everywhere, and you know, having major difficulty. As we see Scarponi here, he's seemed to be, you know, suffering big time. Up front, we can see that group of Vinokurov, Gazzelli, Evans, Gadre, Cunego, Pinotti. They seem to be, you know, getting through it a bit more ease, and I don't think they're really giving it full at the moment. They're looking at each other, who's going to really push it on here. There's a little bit of, you know, a marking situation, tactics here at the moment.
All these guys need is spare tyres slung around their shoulders, don't they? Maybe a water bottle on the front of their handlebars. That's the World Championship bicycle, the MC of Cadel Evans, the former World Cup winner for Cannondale as a mountain biker, and leading from the front as a world champion, just as he should be. Fantastic riding. Stefano Gazzelli in the red, Pinotti in the yellow and black and white. What a day. What a day here in the Giro d'Italia. And tomorrow, you know, they're going to be shattered today, but tomorrow they've got a mountain top finish. The Case de Pan rider in there, as we is David Arroyo. And Arroyo, a very good climber as well. I think Arroyo does some cyclocross as well, actually, back in Spain, or had done. Vinokurov, Gazzelli. He's tough too, Gazzelli. He's always there when the conditions are bad, and especially in these sort of classic type finishes. He's a rider I admire very much. Former winner of the Giro d'Italia back in 2000, a long time ago now, that victory, Sean.
Yes, it's a long time ago. As we can see here, 12 kilometers to go, and the final, at the end of this gravel section is 8.5 from the finish, so still quite a bit here to go for our leaders out front.
Yeah, still quite a bit. This Scarponi coming up to the back of Pozzato. Pozzato's day is run. Katusha did all that work to bring the breakaway back, and it's for nothing, because Pozzato, as soon as he hit this with a slippery surface, it was no, not for me, not for you. You thought he'd been used to it, having seen the City advert, wouldn't you? It's great riding by Scarponi. He's all by himself. He's digging in. These are the real tough men of today. Gazzelli, Vinokurov, Evans, Kunigo. Great ride. We haven't mentioned much of Damiano Kunigo, but that was a fantastic ride because he shut down the gap on Vinokurov and Evans. A terrific bit of riding by the little Italian. Pinotti, we've already mentioned, great ride. Arroyo, another great ride. And Jean Gadry in here. At least two regular off-roaders in here. And Arroyo has done some off-road as well. And still another 7 kilometers of Strada Bianchi to go. It's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Well, we'd have seen a totally different race, I'm sure, Sean, if it had been dry. We would have had a whole big bunch going quite quickly and it would have been whittled down, but nothing like this today.
No, nothing like this. And of course, the crash with you know, the race leader Basso, a lot of the Liquigas riders, that really upset the race before we got onto this dirt section of road, because you know, up front there was so much action. Riders want to push it on, others did not want to push it on, so it really just, you know, the tactic wise, it blew everything out of the water and it was a total mess. And that's certainly have upset it, but it would have been, you know, really difficult with these conditions, with the wet conditions. You know, if we had all the bunch coming together, I think we could have seen more crashes on these sections as well. With the crash area, the bunch was very much pulled out, a lot of roofs on the road, so it made it a little bit safer in that respect.
Surprisingly, fingers crossed, I'm not going to try and curse everybody again, but surprisingly few punctures so far, Sean. We certainly haven't seen much having to be done at the moment. Vincenzo Nibali has come up to the rear wheel of Filippo Pozzato. Pozzato is not a happy bunny, and he might try and slot in that line and get a bit of a tow, but no, I don't think he's even going to be doing that much. They're on a section of asphalt here, but not for long. Brave riding by Nibali. He's not got Valerio with him anymore, and I think it is Basso just behind. I mean, does he now have to look at will Roberto Amadio have said to him from the team car, listen mate, you've had your day in the pink, Basso's the overall contender, we've got to look after him?
Well, I think that's trying to, you know, keep the two of them up there as close as possible and limit both of their losses. And we can see Nibali, you know, he's just riding on the front, looking about where Basso is, and that is surely the orders from the director sportive. You know, stay together, guys. Try and, you know, share the pace pulling on the front. Although Basso looks to be really suffering big time, but if Nibali goes on his own here, he's going to, you know, take maybe 30 seconds from Basso. So best to stay together and try and get Basso maybe to do a little bit, and keep the two of them, you know, within a distance of the race leader of the race leader jersey, and wait for another day, because the position in the moment is not going to change a lot if Nibali goes his own at the moment.
Tierney still going well. This Lund just ahead of Nibali here. Sean, put yourself in that front group. You've been in conditions like this. You've still got a lot of to go. You've got 4 kilometers of this stuff to go. Put yourself in that position with Evans, Vinokurov et al. What would you do?
Well, I think everybody has, you know, really give it a go here. We can see Vinokurov has given it a go, Evans also, so it seems to be the looking and waiting at the moment, and if you've got the legs in the end, well, then you can do the damage, because this is a very difficult finish right to the final kilometre.
At the back is David Arroyo, just ahead of him in the black and yellow. There is Marco Pinotti of HTC Colombia. This is the race leader as of this morning. Vincenzo Nibali with Ivan Basso, we feel is going to be the case, dragging them along. Dario Cioni is chasing hard by himself with Anders Lund sitting on his wheel. What a day. That's really called a few people out today. And Nibali, the knee going in and out, just trying to steady the bike, keep it upright. Just shows how slippery these conditions are. It's not like riding over muddy cobblestones. It's quite different. I think it's like an oil slick out there, Sean. But even on the tarmac here.
Yes, well, on the tarmac it would be very slippery, because if there's some of the, you know, the the mud washed out onto the tarmac. You can slide off very quickly. Here, you know, you can allow it to slide. If you're a good bike handler, you can, you know, slide a bit on the rear and still get around the corners. But you know, you have to keep it in moderation as well. If you attack the corners too hard, too fast, well, then you suffer and risk of going down. 125 at the moment.
125 is the gap between Nibali in the front of the race. Let's just see how that would make things change at the front. Well, 125 would take us back to Andrei Grifko on the overall classification, 14th spot at the moment. In that front group ahead of them are, as you can see, Alexander Vinokurov attacking again. Look at this. I was just looking down at the timings to see everything, but it's Vinokurov and Evans who are off. Now, this looks like a more substantial attack to me, Sean. They've got a little bit more of a gap, and Vinokurov has put the hammer down here.
Yes, he's turned up the gas again and just pulls away with Evans. And you know, this section, it's proven to be so difficult to keep it going. It looks like, you know, that it's you know, the one who fights, who's a better fighter here, struggle on, and a little bit of more power we can see with Vinokurov and Evans. They're just pulling away from the other breakaway companions that go with. Vinokurov, you know, very powerful rider. I think he might be looking at go for Paris-Roubaix after this performance today.
So might Evans, by the look of it.
Evans a little bit more difficult for Paris-Roubaix, the light, smaller rider on the cobblestones, where Vinokurov, the big, heavy rider, I think it'd be an advantage in that respect.
The two of them doing an incredible ride. The world champion, Cadel Evans. The two of them have got a classic victory to their name as well this spring. They've come into the Giro d'Italia in great form. I tell you what, Vinokurov may get the pink jersey back tonight, but Evans is going to shoot up on the overall classification from his current position at 16th at 1:59, and it's taken a stage where it's all about individual performance to get him up there, Sean.
Yes, and you know, he's doing a very good job today and pulling back some, you know, very valuable time that he's lost in the earlier days of the race, and he's going to, you know, shoot back up the general classement and pull time on some of the other, you know, general classement men, which is for me it's a surprise. I thought he would, you know, just be waiting and limit his losses today, but he's really going for it and pushing it on here, as we can see.
Yeah, I think they're going to come back though. Arroyo's already come back. By Arroyo, and it's once again it's Cunego and Garzelli pulling it back. Galdere is still in there, Pinotti still in there. This is just seesawing along at the moment. Nibali keen to push on, as you would be if you're in the pink jersey. You've got to be so careful. Basso not as happy with the speed through the corners being shown by his teammate Vincenzo Nibali, who's going to look over his shoulder again very shortly, I bet you, to see where road captain is. There he is, over that left shoulder and right shoulder. He's dropping Basso every time he puts the hammer down. He's got to slow up again, look.
Yes, Basso not comfortable at all, and we can see Basso, you know, his rhythm there, very slow pedaling cadence, and it's not good on this sort of road. You have to keep the cadence pretty light, you know, turn well, and he's not doing that at all. And he has been, you know, since we came on this dirt gravel section of road, suffering there. But if you're really, you know, out of power, well then it's difficult to do that.
They're looking at each other, wondering behind here who is going to try and shut this down. Evans has pushed on again. And Evans and Vinokurov are starting to work together. The man who's just sitting on the back here is David Arroyo. Just a little bit. Evans looks over his shoulder to see what the gap is. And Cunego, Garzelli, Pinotti in the group behind, just stretching out a little bit now, as these two begin to push on, keep working together. And now Basso gets onto the front. That slower cadence, as Sean was saying. Sean, what is the technique for riding on this sort of stuff? How do you approach it? What do you do when you see these sort of conditions and you arrive? How do you modify your riding style?
Well, I think you know, you have to have a lot of you have to be on a good day. If you have strength and you have the power to get over it, that is the first thing. But also you have to be a little bit crazy going around the corners here. And some guys, you know, they just can do that, and they run very wide in a corner, almost run off. But then they go to the next corner and they go, you know, to the limit again. And some guys, when they get a little bit of a scare, you know, they carry on that right through the section, and they're just really cagey, really careful for the rest of the day, and that is always a difficulty. So, you know, the riders who can do the one-day races, the classic races, especially the Paris-Roubaix, Tour of Flanders, if you can do that, you can ride very well over this style of road.
Talking of being a bit cagey, David Arroyo is not coming through to do any work to contribute on this. Whether he's certain, I wouldn't think, Sean, that he's lacking in the legs. Well, he may be, but he managed to bridge the gap and others haven't.
Yes, well, he's going to play the waiting game. He, you know, he's with two men who are riding for the general classement. They want to pull as much time as possible from the rest of the riders who are chasing, and he is thinking now, I'm going to sit here, leave these guys work, get pulled along for as long as possible, and have a go for the stage victory.
6 kilometers to go. Remember, we get 1 kilometer more, and they get over the top of this little climb and dig a little bit of a dig up to the Poggio Civitella. Second category climb, and they're all a little bit worried about that. I think it's Damiano Cunego setting the pace for this second group on the road at the moment, with Pinotti, Garzelli and Gadre in this group. We thought Gadre may be a man for the mountains, but of course on a road like this, perfect. A cyclocross rider. Fighting hard, Vincenzo Nibali. You can't take anything away from him. Chapeau, sir. Must have been a real shock to the system for some of these riders. They will be scattered for miles and miles behind these guys. They will be all over the shop. And this looks like we're going back to Michele Scarponi, still fighting by himself. You have to take your hat off to him as well, Sean. He's had nobody around him. He's just had to get into a gear and go.
Yes, he's been on his own for a long time, and that is, you know, very difficult. If you have somebody just share a little bit of the pace setting, it helps so much. And he's been, you know, for quite a number of kilometres on his own, fighting there to limit his losses.
Inside the last 5 kilometers for our 3 leading riders. Under the 5 kilometer to go banner come the 4 chasers. It's Cunego, Garzelli, Gadre and Pinotti. And this is the pink jersey. Still on the Strada Bianchi. The rest of them have left it. They're in the last 5 kilometers. This is the final climb of the day. And I tell you what, the descent is pretty tricky too. Now, Vinokurov is the sort of man who would take his life in his hands at some point. Do you think the sniff, the possible sniff of a stage victory will just undo him, Sean? Will he want to go for the stage victory, or is he just going to sit back and let Arroyo go for it?
No, certainly not. I think he's you know, he's contributed so much here, and he's been the one who's pushing on with Evans, of course, and you know, he's not going to leave Arroyo just right away. And there's also the bonification here, which he'll be thinking of, and stage victory. Like, this is, you know, one of the monuments of this Tour of Italy, with this section of gravel road. There's going to be so much talk about this, you know, for the rest of the race. Everybody up here now wants to go for the stage victory, and who's prepared to, you know, there's a little bit of risk attached, but not a lot, because the cobble section is not on the downhill in the final. So it's really who's got the, you know, the most power, who's got the most strength left here.
Evans turning the biggest gear of all, with Vinokurov on his rear wheel, almost just they're almost just taking a bit of a breather here, because the others are coming back. It's once again it's Damiano Cunego who is pushing on. Under the 5 kilometer to go banner then goes the pink jersey of Vincenzo Nibali, and they're back onto the tarmac. My word, they'll be pleased about that. They just... Scarponi looks as though he's being caught by Nibali there. And he's... Vinokurov has seen Cunego and Garzelli coming up to the back of them here, and he's thinking, well, we're going to have to do this all again. I'm not sure that Evans is quite aware that they've come up to, or coming up to the rear wheel yet. But certainly Vinokurov knows it. There it is. Contact is made. The catch is done by Kunigo. Is he going to go just sit in there for a bit, or is he going to try and go past them on the top of this climb? Pinotti, what a ride! A man who's never until this year been seen as much of a climber. He had a great Tour of the Basque Country, I think it was, that we were covering. And once again, he's shown that he's more than just a time trialist, Sean.
Yes, and he's a rider who can get through, you know, the smaller mountains. And today, of course, it's not big stuff in the mountain-wise, but you know, you just need to be a very strong rider. Bike handling, of course, very important, and he seemed to, you know, have that today. And you know, if you're on a real good day, Pinotti, when he's on a good day, he can ride very well and he can throw in some very strong performances.
4 kilometers to go then for Alexander Vinokurov. Garzelli and Gadre still have to make that gap. The question is, Sean, will the Italians have a victory today after all? We've got Damiano Cunego, and we've also got Marco Pinotti trying desperately to hang on to the back here. I think he's almost stretched to his limit though at the moment. But there are 2 chances for Italy to take a solo victory today. And wouldn't you be the hero of the Italian peninsula if you wheeled down to the finish today in first spot?
Yes, you sure would be. And you know, Cunego is also a good finisher in a small group. He can finish very strong, very explosive. How much has he got left? Because he seemed to be, you know, chasing back on there. Did he just allow the 2 to go out in front?
Here we go. Look, sorry to interrupt you.
Vino's going to have a go.
He worries about them. He's worried about Cunego. He's worried about Evans as well. He's going to try and dig in and ride. And Evans is not going to let him go, and neither is Damiano Cunego. That's 1 go for Alexander Vinokurov. They're going to try and ride everybody else off the wheel for a minute, and then he'll go again. And they've done it. Look at that. Wow, that was a big attack by Alexander Vinokurov. Maybe he'll ease up just a little bit. Maybe the others will try and get a comeback. But as soon as they get anywhere near the back of the bang, we'll go again. Can anybody come across that gap? They're trying. 3 kilometers to go. The chase is on. With, it looks like Arroyo doing the chasing once again. Oh, it's tantalizingly close. Flicks the arm to get Evans to come through, and is he going to do it? No, he's not. Can't blame him. Nibali still fighting. Wonderful, wonderful riding. Good on you, sir. He's got Basso in the wheel. Basso will come through and do a little bit in a minute, but the 2 of them have stuck it together. It must be very frustrating for Nibali, Sean, thinking that I'm stronger than Basso and I'm waiting for him, and it's just not happening.
Yes, it is a difficult one, and when you have to wait a little bit, you know, you feel the seconds are ticking away. 1:48 at the moment, so it's not a big disaster for both of them. They're going to, you know, come in and lose a lot of time. But again, it could have been much worse, as we can see here. The descent very technical here, and hopefully that they all get through as Evans just pushes it on here. And we're back to 5 in the front with Pinotti and Arroyo joining up with the 3 leaders. Great riding.
Really great riding by Pinotti and Arroyo, and Evans is going to try and push it on as much as he can. 1.8 kilometers to go. We've still got to get down to the center, and there's this cobbled section to go within the last kilometer. He's trying to ride them off, Cadel Evans. It's a nasty, tricky, hairy descent, this, especially in the wet, and it's Cunego who's got onto his rear wheel. Alexander Vinokurov, I think, just hanging a little bit back, waiting to see what happens on this descent, thinking this is not the greatest of positions for me to really go for it.
Well, I think Evans is really going for time here. He's pushing it on, and he knows that the other men, you know, are losing a lot of time. The big danger men, and I think it's what he's got to do. He's just had to keep on pushing here.
Oh, it's hard in mouth stuff. Oh, such a tight corner. Evans overcooks it, and Cunego goes through. Evans hard on the pedals. to get back onto the wheel of Damiano Cunego. He really has been pushing it on. It really is so tight, so difficult. Cunego showing what a great descender he can be. And Evans was pushing real hard there. Under the 1 kilometer to go, banner now. Arroyo is the man on the back in the black and the red, with Alexander Vinokurov just ahead of him. Don't put it past Vinokurov, because he's really going to have a go if he possibly can. It's so tight. Pinotti in 3rd spot. There's 2 chances now. Onto the section of Pave. 800 meters to go. And Evans takes to the front. It's Cadel Evans at the moment leading them out, but it's going to be one of those sections where he's going to have to really dig hard now, because Cunego is right behind him. Evans, the world champion, leads them into the last 600 meters of today's stage 7. The rain is coming down again, and Cunego is right on his wheel. This is the sort of finish he'll relish. Will he take Italy's first victory? Individual victory here. He's got the bit between his teeth. You can see his eyes. He's worried about where Vinokurov is. And we said Vino was just waiting. He's going to spring it. Surely Pinotti might have a go from this point as well. If he feels he can get past them, he's surely going to have a go. Lighter gear now for Damiano Cunego. David Arroyo has been distanced after all that hard work. It's so difficult to see where they are. They come into the final. He's got to try and keep it together, Evans. And now get into a big gear and go for it. Out of the saddle he goes. He's got to dig really hard, but Cunego is in the best position at the moment. Vinokurov is still waiting. Evans is doing all the hard work, and surely it's only going to be strength that does it for him. He's going to ride away from them. Cadel Evans is going to ride away from the rest of the field. Oh, that is a brilliant victory. Cadel Evans, the world champion. He led all the way through from the front, and he takes it, mud splattered as though he is. He points to his jersey. He's the #1. And what a victory. The Australian, he did all the work with Alexander Vinokurov. He forced them to come back again and again and again, and it was just brute strength in the end that took him up to the finish line. A slide uphill finish, and he rode away on sheer power. The head going down of Damiano Cunego and of Alexander Vinokurov in just sheer exhaustion towards the end. Well, that was an absolutely brilliant finish. Here comes Michele Scarponi. Oh, he's done such a good job to limit his losses. Behind you can see Bekelen's Roriga and Linus Gerdeman. I think that's Miller in there as well, by the look of it. Terrific ride by the Englishman, by the Scotsman, should I say. Oh, Michele Scarponi has nothing left in the tank. Scarponi over the line. Aqua Sapone rider, I'm not at all sure who the Aqua Sapone rider is. You'll have to forgive me for that. And here comes the pink jersey, or what was once the pink jersey of Vincenzo Nibali. It's going out of the window today and should be on the shoulders of Alexander Vinokurov. Gustave Erika Larsson at the front here of this duo of Saxo Bank riders, and Nibali by himself. Finally, he can drive to the line without having to worry about Ivan Basso. It's up to Basso to do his own thing now, and the pink jersey is just fighting for pride now. And a great ride by this man. He had to wait for Ivan Basso. There is no choice, really. Basso on the left-hand side, Nibali on the right-hand side, and being cheered home by the Italian crowd. They know how hard it is to do this by yourself, and Basso looking spent as well. It's taken everything out of these riders, and they've got to finish on a mountaintop tomorrow. Once again, the Giro d'Italia has turned out to be the trumping Grand Tour of all of them. Oh, what a ride by all these riders today. I think that's Matthias Brandl of Futon Cerveto, the Austrian national champion. It certainly is. And what a, sorry, Aibiger is who I meant to say. Oh, what a ride. What a ride by everybody. Chapeau for everybody. If I could climb out of the commentary box and go and stand on that finish line and cheer and clap them as they came home, one by one, I would. What a finish. Sean, what a day's racing.
Yes, what a day, and you know, what a change in classement. And we were expecting some changes, but there's major changes here today. And we see Nibali coming over at 2 minutes around that. Basso a little bit more. Scarponi at 1 minute. So a lot of the big favourites, you know, really losing big time. And Evans, what a ride he has done there today. And in the sprint, it looked like Cunego and Vino were going to swallow him up, but he just had that just more power, and everybody just fighting to get to the line.
Absolutely fighting to get to the line. I couldn't believe it. I honestly thought that Damiano Cunego had that one from behind. He was so keyed up for it, and Vinokurov as well. They were lurking. They were just sitting there ready to pounce, and it never happened, Sean, because that man, Evans, the world champion, just had so much strength. He rode away from them.
Yes, and you know, it's just riding on the front like that, you know, in the last couple of 100 metres, it's the worst position to be in. And I was thinking he was riding for time, and maybe himself he was just thinking get as much time as possible, but he was surprised when he looked around. I think that he had a gap of 5 or 6 bike lengths from the other ones, and nobody managed to come round in the sprint.
I'm all talked out. Pippo Pozzato coming up towards the line. He crosses himself. I think he just says, well, thank you, God, for getting me to the finish line. Great ride by Dario Cioni. This is Sastre and Tondo. Javier Tondo just letting the bars bounce up and down in his hand. It's been a long day in the saddle for these two. Look at the time lost by Tondo and Sastre. Neither of them would have liked this at all, and surely it's just a case of can Carlos Sastre go for stage victories, or Tondo for that matter, in the future, because it's not going to happen for them in this year's Giro d'Italia, not for either of them with this sort of gap, and they're such talented riders. They're not going to be able to be let to get away either in a break. It's not very often you see Carlos Sastre that shade of brown. Javier Tondo on the right-hand side, Carlos Sastre just behind him on the left-hand side of your screen, and it's just crawling to the line. Chapeau. 5 minutes and 23 seconds lost. Well, the real winner today in terms of time, Alexander Vinokurov, one of them, and the other man, Cadel Evans, of course. Evans started the day 16th overall, 1:49. He finishes 2nd overall. David Miller, fabulous ride. Absolutely fabulous ride. He's 1:29 down, 3rd overall now, after one of the toughest days he'll have ever had in the saddle. But he's shown he can do it. He did it at Paris-Roubaix. Look at this. Here we go. Evans gets out of the saddle. Evans gets out of the saddle, and he just rides away from the men behind him. There's no way that they're going to catch him. He's an unbelievable victory for Cadel Evans. The finish today, what can you say that hasn't already been said? Montalcino was the destination. 220 kilometers was the distance. 191 was the number of men who started this morning. And in the end, it came down to just a handful of them, and the world champion, Cadel Evans, just rode away from Damiano Cunego and Alexander Vinokurov in the end to take the victory, and a finely deserved one as well, because he never once just followed a wheel. He never once just sat there. He did a lot of work today, along with Vinokurov. Cunego, great riding today to come back onto the wheel all the time, and fabulous ride by Marco Pinotti as well, and David Arroyo. But in the end, it was just the strength of the world champion here who took the victory. He had a chance to look over his shoulder, and that is one of the greatest stages we've seen in recent years in any Grand Tour anywhere. And it's one of the greatest single days of excitement. Here's the overall classification. Vinokurov leads by 112 from Evans, 129 from Miller. Fabulous ride by the Scotsman. 130 for Takapits. Another good ride by him. Nibali, look at the ride he did to limit his losses. 133 down he is. Oh, they had to fight so hard. He's managed to get fresh shorts, and has he? And a fresh coat to go on over the top for the world champion, Cadel Evans. And a fine, fine victory. Washed his face too. Managed to get that quick shower while he can. Super victory. What can you say about that, Sean? Would you have liked to have come up against him today?
Well, yes, it would be my style of race, and yes, I would, would like that style of racing. But what a race we had today! And I suppose when you look at the general klassements, Nibali and Basso still in there, because Nibali at 1:33, Basso was 13 seconds down, so not out at any means. Cap is doing a great job there. Miller a fabulous ride again today, but Evans really, leaping up the general classement. Sastre is the one who we really lost mountain of time. Scarponi as well. Galzelli did a good job, came in there not too far off. So I think Scarponi, Sastre, Tondo are the big losers on the general classement men.
Yeah, dreadful day for Carlos Sastre and for Javier Tondo. Scarponi, although he fought bravely. Scarponi at 1:01. Gadra at 29 seconds. Gadzelli at 27. Good job by those two. David Arroyo, he did such a hard amount of work, didn't he, to try and bring it all back together. In the end, he and Damiano Cunego, they've all... Well, I've got to say, every single person in that top, 6 riders that we saw attacking, they all worked, and there was no slackers there at all.
Well, it was, a really contested on the river, to say, in cycling. And Scarponi, looking at that time there, he did not lose as much as I had thought he had lost.
Stage 8 tomorrow to Terminilo, a massive mountaintop finish, and if the weather's like today, how much damage will it do once again? The carnage that will ensue could be tremendous. 14:45 live CET on Eurosport for Stage 8, finishing at the mountaintop finish of Terminilo. And a big climb tomorrow, Sean. How do you see it happening? I mean, first of all, if the weather's like this tomorrow, what a day.
Well, it will, they will suffer from the efforts today. I think in the wet, the conditions. Tomorrow was another mountaintop day. It's a different situation again. If the weather conditions, well, it's going to make this race more difficult than we had calculated, because it just really gets difficult as this race go on. And the final week of the race is such a difficult one. It's going to be a really very difficult Giro this year.
Alexander Vinokurov, again, as I said, I've been very vocal of criticism of him recently, but he worked hard today. There's nothing to take away about his performance today. He's got guts and determination. He always did have, though. And he pulls on the pink jersey. Vinokurov, after a fine ride today, along with Cadel Evans. So Astana have the pink jersey back in their fold. Once again, a lot of people commenting already on Twitter that is Cadel Evans proving to be one of the best world champions for years?
Well, he's carrying the jersey very well, and what a change in Evans. Like, the performance he's doing this year is much better than we've seen him for quite a number of years.
A terrific win for Cadel Evans then. Points to his jersey. I am the world champion, and today I've shown I am the world champion. Yes, you have indeed, Cadel, ahead of Damiano Cunego and Alexander Vinokurov. But the Kazakh in pink tonight. Bye for now.